All right, everybody, welcome. So I want to talk about today how the barriers from starting something and the different battles that we're going to have to face to begin to launch. I think this is going to be relevant for anybody who is starting anything, starting a podcast, starting a book, starting a course, starting a new life, turning over a new leaf, starting a fitness program. Like, it really doesn't matter, because this is the season where people start thinking about starting something. And I wanted to begin to point out some of the barriers inside of starting so you can take initiative, get off the sidelines, and begin to move and to take action. All right. So potential isn't everything, and it's not reality. Potential is not reality. I want you to kind of picture for a moment that you're invited to a business networking event and somebody asks you, what do you do? And the things that you are exploring or thinking about or transitioning into, you don't mention any of those things, right? And the reason why I bring this up is because a lot of times when it comes to what do we do, it's not the things that we are thinking about. It's not the things that we are dabbling in. It's the things that are attached to certain behaviors, right? That's why the question, what do you do? Obviously, we go to like job and stuff first. Well, I'm an insurance salesman, or I'm an internet marketer, or whatever. But the key to this is that we're not going to say what it is that we do if we are just kind of dabbling in something, if we have potential but not reality. All right. And what that correlates to is that we understand that actions is what verifies potential, right? Otherwise, potential is just imaginary. Now, let me concrete this home in kind of a way that we understand it, and that is an inherent worth and a potential worth. Now, inherent worth is everything that we're all born with, right? And that is there's a sense of being made in the Creator, in the image of God, and that we have this worth that's attached to, basically at a foundational level, it is inherent. And that is, there's nothing particularly we did to earn it. It is just there. It's inherent worth. And then you have potential worth. Now, everybody has inherent worth. There's no doubt about the image of God upon people's lives, okay? But potential worth has to do with their capacity and to the ability and to the extent that they exercise themselves to do something, right? And that is, they can have all the inherent worth they want, but until it becomes concrete in actions and behaviors, then a lot of it is just potential. Let me explain it another way, is that potential worth is, maybe a 12 or 13-year-old who has a good arm, right? Now, let's say he's got some natural inclinations to be a good quarterback. And that is, there is a lot of potential worth there. Now, whether or not he's going to make it to college or whether he's going to make it to NFL, there's a lot of different deciding factors. But a lot of it has to do with is it going to take advantage of the potential worth that is at his disposal? And that is he going to do the reps and the work necessary and get disciplined in order to begin to execute and carry that thing out? All right. Potential worth. Now, everything that you want to start is potential. I got a potential book. I got a potential podcast. I got a potential course, potential church. Like, everything inside of seed form, inside of the person who is birthing it, is all potential. You could be the most disciplined person, the most talented person. You could be the most impactful speaker on the planet. But if you never grab a mic, you never get up on a stage, you never start, all it is potential. There's absolutely no proof. It's kind of like this, is that you have like some writing skills that are like exceptional. And you know that you have writing skills that are exceptional, right? But until you begin to flesh something out and to start something, you're never going to actually prove it to yourself. And there's the proof is in the pudding. And that is, show me, right? And that's why we have to begin to start, because starting creates the actions that produce the proof. And I say proof not only to ourselves, but it's going to be proof also to others. Okay. Action is what's going to give proof. Now there's nothing worse than lying to yourself. And I don't think this is a very good way to, as far as a life philosophy, I don't recommend people do this. And I know that there's been great people that have said to do this, but I don't recommend that you lie to yourself or to tell something that you're not in order to convince yourself. And the brain kind of gets the dissonance, and the brain knows that you're lying to yourself. So, I mean, all of that stuff in regards to lying to yourself is not effective. Now, the best thing that you can do, according to affirmations, is begin to affirm your potential reality and your ability to create that. Because once you begin to affirm your potential and that you actually have the power, skills, and abilities to carry that out, those are going to be the affirmations that begin to flesh out and produce something positive inside of your life. All right. Now, I think part of personal growth and development is to prove to yourself. In fact, I think some of the most detrimental things that we could do is show up in the world and try to prove things to the world. I'm going to show them, or I'm going to show that coach of mine from 20 years ago, or blah, 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 right? That's some of the most detrimental things we show up and try to prove things to the world. But the reality is that we need to prove things to ourselves. And the best way that you can prove to yourself is to begin to take initiative and to take action. All right. God blesses action because faith without works is dead, and that he is looking for somebody who is willing to take action. You think of Elisha, how Elijah came on the scene, and it was time for him to be mentored, and it was a new time and a new season in his life. And he took all of those things from his past and got rid of it all. Is a ancient case of burning the bridges, that he was moving forward, and his actions demonstrated that he was moving forward. Now, there is no reward, there is no fruit for what you could do. That's where the potential thing comes in. Well, I could do that. Yeah, but you don't. Well, I'm so much better than that person. I hear this a lot from highly talented and skilled people. Well, I could do that better than that person. Yeah, but you don't. And so the world doesn't reward, or God doesn't reward, or anything doesn't reward what you can do. It rewards what you actually do. And that's the same thing with your mind, is that your identity doesn't shift because you can do a certain thing. Your identity is going to shift when you start doing it and getting the reps. All right. The best way to convince ourselves of our new identity is the reps and the habits and the behavior and the evidence. Because what your brain is going to do is it's going to look for the evidence of your new identity. Is this true or not? And there's no amount of lies that's going to convince the brain that it's true. Your brain has to see the evidence of your new identity. Your actions is the proof to your brain, and your actions are what concrete your identity. And then it's like a revolving cycle. Once I accept that identity, then it makes it easier for me to create more actions that are in alignment with that identity. All right. So when it comes to like podcasting and being an influencer or getting your voice out there into the world, I'm not an influencer until I begin to influence. And I'm not a communicator until I begin to use my mouth to communicate for change and transformation. And that is, once I begin to do the habits and behaviors, then it reinforces my identity, which only gets me into more actions and behaviors that are according in alignment with my new identity. All right. This is how identity shifts begin to happen. All right. Starting reinforces the identity, and the actions reinforce it. And it's just this positive loop that continues on and on and on. All right. So let me give you some principles to run with this kind of change and transformation. Is that we need to make the identity a small shift, because what we're trying to do is move from what we are into where we want to be into our new identity. And what we often think is that it is a instant transformation into that identity, right? This is one of the great problems with any form of communication. When it comes to going from an unbeliever to a believer, there are certain barriers along the way to get me to the point of where I identify myself as a believer. There's multiple barrier points and different things along the line. It is usually not a one-step process. Now, I'm not to say that God doesn't do miracles and do instant transformations and all that different stuff, but even that, it took you multiple different things to get you up to that point where you got the capacity to receive. All right? It wasn't an instant thing for most people. And that is, it was a shift that began to happen over different difficulties, different life situations, different lessons that led you to the point of transitioning into a believer. Now, it doesn't matter which thing that we talk about when it comes to transformation, but let's just take a podcaster, for example, because this is who I'm talking to: podcasters, creators, okay, coaches. Is that I didn't instantly become a podcaster, right? It took me through the process of launch and starting up and getting the cover art, the intro music, the distribution. There were multiple steps that led me to this. And then when I get on the mic and I do my first episodes, even then the identity is not concreted in until there is habit and repetition. This is why most people quit before the 12th episode. They don't have an identity of a podcaster or an influencer. They haven't received it. They haven't done enough reps where it became concrete as part of who they are. All right. A writer. To transition from a writer into an author is chapters of a book. If chapters of a book don't scream process, I don't know what else does, right? In order for me to be an author, I have to flesh out this book, and I got to create this idea, and then I have to have chapters to this book, and then I have to complete those chapters, and then I got a rough draft, and then I have all of this different process that goes after I have the draft to get me to the transition to the identity of an author, all right? So the reason why I'm talking about this so passionately is because we want an identity shift. We want the transformation, but the transformation is a process, okay? And that process is not going to happen on the sidelines. In other words, you're going to have to engage and you're going to have to start, all right? And that is starting is not going from here to there instantaneously. Starting is taking the first step. For a lot of people, it's buying the microphone. For a lot of people, it's doing a time block inside of their calendar so they can write. For some people, it is going through courses that create the talent, skills, and abilities that they feel like they have to be able to coach people. For some people, it's going to a university to learn how to be a pastor, right? You get the thing. There is a step involved with creating this identity shift. All right. Small shifts. All right. And so this leads us to what is the next step? What is going to get me off of the sidelines? What is going to get me to take action? That's the question that we need to ask ourselves. Now, the thing that we need to watch out for is that we should not be trying to adopt a full identity before there's any proof. And that is get in, start, take action, get the reps, and your mind will see the evidence, and you will have the evidence that proves that you are having this identity shift and transformation. Now, to adopt a identity before it's a reality is a surefire way to set yourself up for failure. All right. There's nothing worse than masquerading as whatever it is when it's not reality, right? Just just a lot of negative stuff with that kind of mindset. All right. Another common mistake is this process of transformation. Like, I just need to do a thing one time and that's it. I just need to show up and run one chapter. Now, if you showed up and you did one episode, I don't think that would technically qualify you as a podcaster. But you did an episode. If you show up and did one chapter, I don't think that would qualify you as an author. I think you could be a writer or a blog poster, right? And so make sure that you are doing the steps necessary that solidify and concrete the identity that you're looking to achieve. All right. Now, here is one of the biggest mistakes that I see, and that is waiting for your feelings to begin to line up before you act. Because initially, you're not going to feel like an author. You know why? Because you're not an author yet. You're not going to originally feel like a podcaster. You know why? You're not a podcaster yet. You're not going to initially feel like any part of any sort of transformation that happens. All right. And that shouldn't hold you back, because you are the kind of person that is willing to take the steps necessary to get the identity transformation that you are looking for. All right. Next one is thinking that starting requires perfect conditions. I hear this all the time about oversaturation. Everybody has the podcast. Everybody is out there with the mic trying to influence people. Like, everybody's doing it. And people feel like an oversaturation to what's going on. And the reality is, and when it comes to podcasting, there are, according to Apple Podcasts, I think the last time I checked, there was like 7 million. I think that has gone down significantly because there was a mad rush during COVID and lockdowns to go virtually. But at any rate, I think they estimated that there was like 500,000 active or something. And then they based that action based upon showing up every week and doing episodes. So what appears to be oversaturation or bad conditions or not a good environment, it's actually not the case. But let's just say, even if that were the case, do you really think that there's enough books out there? Do you really think that your perspective doesn't matter? Or do you think that, there's enough churches, we have these on every corner, the propagation of the gospel doesn't matter? Or there's enough courses out there, there's enough, all of this different stuff, there's really no room for me. Can you see like the fallacy inside of that logic? Right? It just doesn't make sense, because it's not true. It's just our brain trying to keep us safe and keep us in our little comfort zone, in our little bubble, so we don't start, so we don't do the thing and take action. All right. So when it comes to identity and a simple system, this is that I'm going to write out, I'm the kind of person who does one thing, whatever it is, and start small. I'm the kind of person that writes a chapter a week. I'm the kind of person that shows up and does a podcast episode once a week. I'm the kind of person who takes action. All right. I'm the kind of person who doesn't sit on the sidelines. All right. And then you choose that step and then you do that thing. And from the reps of doing that thing is the transformation. Now, I like to equate this to spiritual formation. And that is going from unbeliever to believer. And then the progression onward as far as discipline and daily habits of maybe getting into the word and prayer and meditation, a moment of silence, and all of these different things that could be counted as spiritual disciplines. It is in doing the things that concretes the identity. It is the repetition of the acts that solidifies the transformation. All right. So you're the kind of person that does that one thing. Whatever it is that you're trying to start, you start it, you do it, and you map out what that is. And by all means, you do it. You do it. You execute that thing and you carry that thing out. Now, what's going to happen is that you're going to convince yourself of a couple things. One is you're going to convince yourself that you're the kind of person that does what you say. And it's really hard to be a respectable person if you don't have self-respect. And self-respect comes from being the kind of man that does what he says, and that is to take action on the thing that you said you were going to do. Right. So it's going to convince yourself that you are a respectable and honorable person. And it's also going to solidify the new transformation that I'm talking about. All right. So step number 2 is to treat your first reps like practice. Moving forward is what you're looking for. Now, a lot of people don't start because they think that they are starting a test and that they're going to have this like final exam or something to see if they pass or fail. But let me tell you, starting isn't a test, it's practice. And you know why you need practice is because we initially suck. And I hate to break it to you, but this is the way that we all come into the world. We all suck. We're all in a developmental process. You think a baby, when they first learned to walk, didn't suck at walking, suck at crawling, suck at talking, whatever it is, right? And that is, it's okay to suck, because we are all in a process of transformation of getting better and better. When I listened to my first live 8-9 years ago, it went viral and thousands of people watched it. It was just very raw. But at any rate, I listened to it now and it's very cringy. You know, I would like to make it disappear. Let me tell you, you haven't grown if you wouldn't want to make your first communications disappear. I wrote a book in 2013. And it's good. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And it had a good premise behind it. And it's cringy. It's very cringy. And I had to start somewhere. Right. So if you go back to some of the biggest podcasters in the world, you go back to Alex Ramosey's 2017 first intro video to the podcast. You go look at all of these different people and you go listen to their first episode. Boy. It's cringy. And that is, we need to understand that we are going to suck and that we need the reps. And those reps are going to get us the skills that we need, right? It is in the doing that we learn experience. And in that experience, we begin to grow and to learn better ways and to refine and to get better and better over time. All right. Think of it like this. If you were trying to build muscle, how would you do that? We know repetition, reps. That's why they call them reps. Is that if, in order for you to build muscle, to get bigger and stronger, you're going to have to do the reps. And that is the continual motion, the heavy weight of lifting is what gets you the growth. Let me tell you, I haven't really found an area in life where growth doesn't happen in that fashion. It is always going to happen through repetition, okay? Your first attempt at something is just the beginning. If you've ever been on a weight loss journey, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. When you hit the ground running and you start maybe jogging, you suck. You can't really get that far. You're huffing and puffing. All right. Got to do the reps. You got to start somewhere. This is the same philosophy. It doesn't matter what you're trying to create. You have to start. Get off the sidelines. It's not going to be perfect. All right. Practice is what creates the growth. All right. So are we willing to take action, messy action, even if it's very unimpressive? Okay. Your first attempt is not going to be the greatest. A year back, you will look on that and go, wow, I have come a long way. So we can't let the messiness of learning something new prevent us from taking action or waiting till you feel confident before you begin. This is what I feel like a lot of people struggle with. And I want you to think of this in like riding a bike terms. I remember when I was young, our house had we had like a pile of bicycles. My stepfather, he was like a pack rat and collected all of this crap. Anyways, we had like this pile of bicycles and no completed bike whatsoever. And so we kind of put together this bike, and I'm not particularly remember if the chain worked or not, but we got some rims on it and it was really, really big and we couldn't like get on it as a young kid. And so we climbed up the tree. So we had the bike leaning up against the tree And then we climbed up the tree, and then we shifted over and we sat on the bike, and then we pushed off the tree. This is some of my first attempts of riding a bike. Talk about messy, super messy. Was I going anywhere? Yeah, for a little bit. It was like, whee! Until you crashed. But we have to get okay with not feeling that confidence at the beginning. Because confidence, once again, comes from experience and repetition. The more we do a thing, the more skills we get, the more confident we get, the better we get. All right? So sitting on the sidelines until confidence strikes. I think many people are waiting for a confident fairy. And that is some magical moment to happen where the confidence is immediately produced inside of their lives. Right? Another thing that I see a common mistake from those who begin to launch is that they launch trying to be impressive instead of trying to learn. Now, whatever it is that you are newly starting, you're a new booty. You understand new booty, right? That's what they call the new peeps in prison. I'm giving away my culture, my white trash culture. That whatever it is you're endeavoring to do, you're a newcomer at it. And your goal is not to try to be impressive. Your goal is to learn. Right? It's not to show up in the world with a kind of firework mentality. And that is that you're going to show up and it's going to be absolutely amazing your first time. And it's going to be beautiful fireworks and people are going to be, ooh. And let me tell you, that rarely ever happens. That is through the repetition and the consistency that you build trust that people start to notice you. They don't notice you because of how gifted and talented, how you came on the scene was massively impressive. Hey, ain't nobody care. Most people are concerned about themselves. They're not concerned about you, right? Now, the next common mistake is trying to measure the first rep by the outcome instead of the completion, right? Your main goal in starting something is just to execute and carry it out, not from the consequence, the outcome, or the fruit. Oh, I did this thing and I didn't get the validation that I was looking for, or I didn't get the amount of downloads that I was expecting, instead of the completion of the rep. Get the reps, do the work, all right? Another thing is the go big or go home mentality. And I've seen this so many times, and this usually comes from men who have a lot of money. And they try to muscle their way to the top. They go big or they go home and they make their first project something huge. It's like they're out there trying to do motocross and they don't know how to ride a bike yet. And it's like, and I've done this. In my weight loss journey, I'm like, man, I really feel like I need to lose weight. And I'm, pushing close to 300 pounds. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna go join CrossFit, man. I love the CrossFit people. I'm just gonna go be a CrossFitter, right? And I show up, pay the money, show up every single day, and constantly hurting myself and doing all of these different things. And don't get me wrong, CrossFit is absolutely amazing, but it's amazing for athletes. It's not amazing for a first step from a guy getting off the couch eating bonbons, right? That's not a good first step. And so I was constantly hurting myself and doing all these things. And I ended up getting a habit coach. And my habit coach was like, bro, like, why don't you go for a walk? I'm like, wow, go for a walk? Yeah, I could do that. I dropped the CrossFit thing and I just started walking and getting steps, and I started experiencing the transformation because I wasn't trying to go from 0 to 10. I wasn't trying to make this first big project something so big that I don't have the talent, skills, and resources to actually pull it off, right? And that is, you're probably going to write quite a few books before you get to that one that is really career defining. You are probably going to do quite a few episodes before you hit the point of, wow, that was really good. All right. This is just the way life is. Another one is people quit or they don't launch or complete the launch phase is because the first version is so awkward. Of course it's awkward. We're learning a new system and a new process, a new way of doing things, new habits, new routines. Comfortable is inside of the bubble. Once you step outside of the bubble, there's fear, There's awkwardness. And the reason why there's fear and awkwardness is because you are going into uncharted territory. And that is, you're going to some place that you have never been before. This is why it requires risk, faith, and a bold audacity to travel there, because a lot of people will not travel there, right? And so, of course, you're going to be fearful, of course. And that is because you have stepped out of the comfort zone and you are now inside of the learning zone. And that learning zone is shaky, wobbly legs, you name it. You can use whatever kind of metaphor you want. And you can see that at the beginning, things are a little unstable. My routines are not set in stone. My habits are not in place. I haven't really got this thing down yet, and it's a little wobbly. Welcome to startup. If you're starting a business, the first little bits, it's really messy. Really, really messy. You're trying to figure out the systems, the process, all these different things. You can expect that it's going to be messy. Are you okay with dealing with the mess? All right. So practice. Practice, practice, practice. It does not need to be perfect, but I need to begin to practice. Practice has the idea of doing something at a smaller level before you do something at a bigger level. Maybe it's one person that you start sharing your ideas with. Maybe that goes into 5 people. Maybe it's a private group. You see, we start small and then it grows from there. All right. And so you got to be willing to grade yourself on completion, not on quality, especially initially. Because quality at the moment is not the goal. The completion of the rep is the goal. Even if we're doing it wrong. This is one thing that I learned in kind of fitness culture is because we are not used to the reps, we naturally do things out of form. And that is, we are doing them incorrectly. Let's give the kudos for taking action into doing it. At least you're moving and taking action and you're going that direction. And then you can begin to recognize and correct form and do all of these things. Nobody has perfect form at the beginning. Nobody. So are you going to allow messiness to stop you from taking action on the thing that you want to do? Lastly, number 3 is that you move your progress outside of your head. And that is the things that you have been mapping out inside of your head, get them fleshed out on paper, get them out of your head, and move them from a private sort of dream or fantasy into a real fleshed out reality. Start with paper and then start with a person. Otherwise, you're just going to circle around in potential energy. Dream fantasy land. I like dreamland. I'm a dreamer. I'm a visionary. I like seeing the future. But if I don't concrete that into practical action and habits and behaviors that produce me those kind of results, I'm in fantasy land. Okay? And that's not going to move the needle forward. That's not going to get me anywhere at all. All right. So can I take practical action? Planning is not execution. And planning is kind of progress, but not really. If I was to do a scale on the progress level, planning would be 10%. Not that planning is important. It is important. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because people fail to launch and fail to start a certain thing because they are constant planning mode. They're planning to. Planning is not progress. Planning is not progress whatsoever. If you create a plan and you take one teeny, tiny little step, that's progress. But planning alone is not progress. And neither is information for that matter. Information alone will not produce transformation. Information by itself, it can be absolutely dangerous, honestly. Because both of these, the planning and the information, they give us the illusion that we're doing something. And that is that we make plans. Well, I'm going to take this course. I don't know how many people I've met that took course and didn't do absolutely nothing with it. Or I'm going to read these books. Well, it's not really in the reading of the books, it's in the doing of the books. Right? This is why the Bible says that don't be just hearers of the word, but be ye doers. Because knowledge and information alone does not produce transformation. And so the illusion is that I can keep on getting the knowledge and keep on doing this thing of planning and think that I'm actually getting nowhere. And the reality is that I haven't even stepped out of the gate yet. I haven't even started. I'm planning to. I'm thinking about it. Here's the psychology behind this, guys, is that knowledge and all of these other different things, researching, I'm just researching. They're all ways to avoid the first rep. And here's my wisdom in the matter, is that most of us know a general sense of knowledge enough to get started. Very few of us don't have the enough knowledge to get started. If you were looking for a new year, new you, and you were looking to lose weight, you have a sufficient amount of knowledge to get started. You know, less calories, more steps, go to the gym, whatever it is, drink more water. You know intuitively enough to get started. And so the constant planning and the researching, all of that is avoidance techniques. And the avoidance is that I'm not really doing anything to move the needle forward, and I'm avoiding the rep or the thing that is actually going to signify progress. This is how I talk to people that bought a mic 3 years ago. So I've been thinking about starting a podcast, and oh yeah, how long have you been thinking about? Oh gosh, man, the first thought came to me like 3 years ago. So you've been sitting on this idea for 3 years? And some of them even worse, right? And I've had these guys too. They bought the mic. And it's there sitting there collecting dust. And it'll sit there for years. And then they even go buy a course. And so then they go through and then they take the course. And by all of this time, they are still in planning and researching mode, in that they haven't actually done anything yet. And it's been a 3-year process. All right. This is a inner resistance that is keeping you from launching. And it's usually attached to fear-based stuff. I'm actually afraid. I'm afraid I don't know what I'm doing. You don't. Not really. I'm afraid that people will judge me. They will. I'm afraid that I'll get haters and trolls. You will. I'm afraid I'll stumble around and kind of have to figure things out. Yep. So what? So what? Are you afraid to look stupid in front of people that don't even matter? I was just going to sit here and plan this thing. I'm just going to keep it private until I'm ready. I'm going to polish this thing so perfect and polished, and I never ship it out. Let me tell you, we're going to have to ship. If we ever expect to grow and to transform and to get the reps, we're going to have to do this repeatedly over and over again. You see, we don't have any other moment in life. The only moment that we have is right now, and we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And so we have to decide today what kind of reps we're going to do. What kind of reps? Because the outcomes and the results that we're looking for, whether it's muscle, whether it's relational with your wife and your intimacy, or whether it's inside of your business, it's all correlated to the reps and to the habits that you do. If you want better results, you're going to have to start the reps. If you want this end goal of influence and impact, you're going to have to start the reps. And that is, you're going to have to do what is required to get that. It all comes to discipline and habits. You see, there isn't a right time for anything when it comes to putting my finger in the air and checking the weather to see if there's any resistance. Oh, there's resistance. I guess it's not the right time. Is that what we're doing? No. Now is the only time that we have. And so if it's important to us when it comes, having influence and impact is important to me, and I'm going to demonstrate it today by the actions, because I'm going to take action today. The right time is now. And so I'm going to create the evidence. I'm going to create the evidence. The evidence of me being an influencer is I get on the mic and I influence. The evidence of me being a podcaster is I get on the mic and I speak. And I ship it and I put it out there into the world. Like it, love it, hate it, whatever. Doesn't matter to me. I'm going to still do my thing. So What piece of evidence can you create today for the identity that you're creating? If you are trying to be an author, what evidence are you going to produce? If you're trying to be a podcaster, what evidence are you going to produce that is in alignment with that identity? And are you going to do it and to take action? Is it producing something tangible? You see, if you're a creator and you're going to create something, you're not a creator if you're just planning and thinking about it. You're a creator when you take pen to paper, when you take mouth to mic, when you do these things that flesh out the reality. And so you should be able to see it somewhere. If I go in the tab over here on my laptop to the next tab, I see the book that I'm creating. I see it. It's right there. It's in progress. It's all written and spelled out for me. So the evidence of my identity of becoming the author of that book is inside of that tab, and I can go right there and got proof. The evidence that I use my mouth for influence, you could just go on my Facebook, take a look. Let me tell you, there's evidence. There's evidence. You can log into my podcast platform. You can see the thousands and thousands of people that I'm reaching every week. There is evidence. All right. So, are you going to be the kind of person that takes action and produces evidence? You got something to show for the identity that you are creating. All right. All right. I'll see you tomorrow.